Get down from here. Nam Seung-ho shouted, anger rising within. What would you do if you caught a person sneaking into your home through the fence? Such was the case for Seung-ho that fateful morning. Intrusion was unacceptable. His compound was secured, controlled, untouchable. So when he caught a repairman sneaking over his fence one morning, his response was simple: remove the problem. What he didn't expect was hiring someone who was stubborn, talked back, ignored his wealth, and fixed what other professionals couldn't. He also didn't expect the confusion that followed, the way his attention lingered, or how one careless collision in his hallway would trigger a reaction his body recognized before his mind did. But when an extra job sends that same repairman into the orbit of a dangerous man, what Seung-ho failed to see right in front of him is finally revealed, forcing him to confront a truth he had long been denying. Before we begin, welcome to Lifetale Stories. If you enjoy intense, emotional stories where power is tested, desire is unexpected, and control is never what it seems, go ahead and subscribe, like, and settle in. Because today, we're stepping into Nam Seung-ho's world and discovering what happens when a man who sees everything is blind to what's standing right in front of him. It was a morning just like any other. Nam Seung-ho locked his phone with frustration and slid it into his pocket as he walked to the balcony of his mansion. His home internet connection was pretty much useless. The company responsible for every electrical and internet connection had sent 3 technicians. They all failed to solve the problem. Their only solution was to rewire the whole house. Nam Seung-ho let out a deep breath, then he inhaled the fresh morning air, his eyes glancing over his property, and then, what the... His eyes narrowed as he sighted a figure climbing over his security fence and reaching for the perimeter tree. Quickly, Nam Seung-ho walked downstairs and towards the courtyard. One of his guards noticed his movement, and then the focus of his attention. Movement near the east wall, he said into the microphone as the guard dogs began to bark. Nam Seung-ho shook his head as he approached the wall. The figure was now halfway up one of the perimeter trees, stretched dangerously along a thick branch while tugging at something caught between the leaves. The dogs strained against their restraints, snarling, but the climber did not panic, only startled a bit. Then they tightened their grip and muttered something under their breath. Seung-ho slipped a hand into his pocket as he watched. He couldn't believe a thief would be this bold in the daytime. "Come down," he said calmly. The figure froze, then looked down. "I just need a second." "You don't have a second," Seung-ho replied. "Come down, or I let the dogs decide for you." That worked. The descent was quick. Boots hit the grass, and the stranger immediately slipped something he had snagged from the tree into his pocket. Nam Seung-ho quickly assessed the stranger. He had on oversized repairman work clothes, his cap pulled low and grease on the sleeve. It wasn't really an outfit that said robbery at work. The man was young, and his eyes said he wasn't afraid of the situation he was in. Nam Seung-ho was intrigued by the sight in this repairman's eyes. A guard stepped forward. "Sir, should we?" Seung-ho raised one finger to silence him while his gaze settled on the intruder. "You have 1 second. Explain yourself." "You scaled a private wall," he said. "Explain." "My tools got stuck in your tree." The man's voice was light and filled with irritation. "I tried the front gate. Your security refused to listen." One of the guards shifted. Seung-ho noticed and stored it for later. "You entered restricted property for tools?" Nam Seung-ho asked, his voice skeptical. "I'm working next door. Electrical job. My line's snagged on your side." The man finished as he maintained direct eye contact. Nam Seung-ho thought. Most people looked away from him. This one didn't. "If you needed access, you request it," Seung-ho said. "I did," the stranger shot back. "Your men thought I was lying." "Here," the stranger continued, pulling out something from his pocket. "This was what I had to get." Nam Seung-ho glanced at the tool and, before he could respond, a voice echoed from the balcony. "What's with all the barking?" Nam Seung-ho looked up to find his friend, Stephanie, in her silk robe, arms crossed against her chest. "Oh, did you get another technician, Seung-ho?" she asked as she looked at the repairman. Well, whatever you were fixing worked. The internet just came back. Finally, she added as her gaze flicked to Seung-ho, I'm going inside. My meeting starts in 10. Then, she walked off without waiting for a reply. Seung-ho's attention returned slowly to the intruder. You adjusted something? He asked, glancing at the perimeter tree and wall. The stranger gave a small shrug. It was a loose line. It took 2 minutes to fix. So this person had already altered something inside his controlled environment without permission, he thought, yet the irritation he expected to feel never arrived. Only curiosity. What is your name? The stranger reached into a pocket and held out a business card. Seung-ho took it and read, Charlie Reynolds. General repair work. Deals in network, electrical and maintenance repairs. Installation available. You're quite broad in your work. The repairman, Charlie, gave a small smile as he adjusted his cap. I'm a jack of all trades, master of some. Isn't that meant to be a master of none? In my case, I'm a master of some. Look, if anything else stops working, Charlie continued, it's probably the same line or something internal. Can I go now? I still have to finish my other job. Seung-ho nodded, and Charlie walked past him toward the gate, without another word.
No backward glance.
The metal gate shut softly behind the departing figure. Seung-ho remained where he was, eyes resting on the empty space for a moment longer than necessary. Then he turned back toward the house, his hand brushed once against the card in his pocket. Charlie Reynolds. Something about the encounter lingered, small, unfamiliar, and entirely unwelcome. Moreover, something about the repairman felt off, he thought, but he couldn't place why. For now, he shelved the thought away. Find out who is handling the electrical work next door, he told his closest bodyguard, Dae-hyun. Yes, sir, he nodded. It took less than 10 minutes. The technician is legitimate, sir. Licensed. Called in yesterday by the neighboring property. Then get him back, Seung-ho ordered as he glanced at his phone. The files he had been trying to send since the early hours of the morning had finally gone through. But the internet was acting up again, just like Charlie had predicted. Charlie had just reached the adjacent driveway when a guard approached her. My boss requests you return, the guard said. Charlie frowned as she looked at the man. Did I break something? You'll have to ask him. Charlie released a quiet sigh. It was never over with this rich people, she thought. Okay. But if this is about the tree, I already. Please follow me. The guard led her back. Inside the mansion, Charlie stopped and assessed the house. Large structure. Modern wiring paths. Clean installations. Money. Serious money. The owner of the house, Seung-ho, stood near the central console as she glanced around. You restored the connection from outside, he said. Charlie set her toolbox down. It was a temporary fix. If the internal line is damaged, it won't hold. Well then, check it. Charlie folded their arms. I don't work for free. If she was going to work, they had to discuss rates. Seung-ho slid his hands into his pocket as he watched her. You climbed my wall. You threatened to sick dogs on me.
Charlie rebutted fast.
Seung-ho shook his head, his lips curling. Just check the line, he repeated. You'll be compensated. Charlie studied him for a moment, deciding whether his word could be trusted or not. Okay. But if the problem is bigger than the line, the price goes up. Fix it first. Charlie moved quickly once at work, tracing the internal cables, opening panels, testing signal strength. After a few minutes, Charlie found the source of the problem. Whoever installed this bent the fiber too sharply. Charlie explained, the signal is choking. Can you correct it? He asked. I wouldn't be standing here if I couldn't. Seung-ho watched from a distance. Most workers became nervous when under observation. But Charlie seemed to forget he existed the moment the tools came out. 10 minutes later, the system reset. Lights stabilized. Connection bars locked full. Charlie closed the panel with a firm click. You're good now. That was fast. Yeah, that's how I work. Fast but efficient. Charlie wiped a streak of grease across her wrist, then picked up the toolbox as she spoke. I'll send an invoice. Nam Seung-ho stepped forward and handed over a thick envelope instead. Charlie's brow lifted, then she opened it cautiously. This is more than my rate. Consider it payment for efficiency. Charlie gave a small shrug and tucked it away, then reached into a pocket and placed another card on the console, in case it acts up again. Seung-ho looked down at it, though he already had one. Do you always carry lots of cards? You never know when a referral is needed. Charlie clapped her hands. Like they say, there's no such thing as too much marketing. Charlie threw a wink, then turned toward the exit door. I have another site waiting, so I'll see myself out. Try not to bend your cables again. And just like that, Charlie walked out.
No linaggering.
No effort to impress. The door shut softly behind her. Seung-ho found his gaze resting briefly on the closed door. His bodyguard, Dae-hyun, noticed. Is there a problem, sir? No. I'm thinking of hiring him. But the job is done. Seung-ho glanced at the business card. He offers maintenance work. And he's competent. Competent people are hard to find. His bodyguard nodded. That's true. Nam Seung-ho walked into his office, his fingers brushing the edge of Charlie's card again. A small, unfamiliar awareness settled in his chest, but he ignored it. Charlie was hired 3 days later. Preventive maintenance routine was the contract request. The contract said she was to come in 2 days per week. It seemed pretty extra, but the pay was good. Who was she to argue? This time, the gate opened without argument. One of the guards gave a short nod. You're cleared to enter. Right, Charlie muttered, walking past with the toolbox swinging lightly at their side. Charlie got to work immediately, checking the external panel before moving inside to test signal stability. Nam Seung-ho, her new boss, stepped into the hallway, leaning against the wall. Charlie tightened a connection, then glanced over briefly. You watch all your technicians like this? Only the ones who scale my walls. Charlie huffed a small laugh and shook her head. You're never letting that go, are you? Unlikely, he said, a small smile on his lips. A short silence passed, then Charlie closed the panel. Signal's stable. It should keep for a long while. You're certain? He asked. Look, mister, I don't mean to boast, but I'm pretty good with my job. I thought I'd proved that, or do you hire people you don't trust? Seung-ho held her gaze. I don't usually hire people who argue with me. Charlie straightened and gave a small, I guess I'm the exception. You should do it more often, she continued, stepping towards him. It'll help keep you on your toes. Once again, Charlie threw a wink his way and walked away, not glancing back.
Nam Seung-ho stood stun.
Something in his chest shifted as he watched the repairman walk away. The way the repairman had winked and smiled at him felt odd. And the scent. What sort of man had a floral and vanilla-rich scent? Weren't repairmen meant to smell of the work they involved themselves in each day? Letting out a breath, Seung-ho turned and walked away, thinking nothing of it. One day, Nam Seung-ho was walking down the corridor to once again watch this new staff that constantly piqued his interest. He heard the sound of footsteps approaching, but by them it was too late. Charlie was halfway down the service corridor and had turned the corner too fast, toolbox swinging, attention already on the wiring schematic in her head, and slammed straight into someone solid. Oh! Her boot slipped on the polished floor. Gravity made a decision before either of them did. She went down hard, right into Nam Seung-ho. The collision knocked the breath out of both of them as they went back a step, his shoulder hitting the wall as he caught the repairman on instinct. The toolbox clattered loudly across the floor. For half a second, everything froze and Nam Seung-ho blinked. Charlie, his repairman, was sprawled across his chest, one knee wedged awkwardly between his legs, one palm flattened against his suit. His brows furrowed as he noticed the slender palms of the repairman. Oh my God, Charlie said quickly, scrambling to stand. I'm so sorry, I didn't see you, and… Charlie stopped, her brows furrowing as she looked down at him, because he hadn't moved at all. He just laid on the floor, stiff and unmoving. His breath wasn't even. Something unmistakable had happened to Nam Seung-ho. Something biological, uninvited and very real. The floral scent of the repairman attacked him from all corners, and Seung-ho's entire body went rigid as awareness slammed into him. A sharp, inappropriate response he had expected at all. Immediately, Seung-ho got to his feet and stepped back as his whole body burned. What was this? He asked himself. Sorry, Charlie said as she scooped up her toolbox. I swear I don't usually assault billionaires before noon. The repairman had tried to joke it away with a soft chuckle, but everything felt too real for Seung-ho. Next time I'll watch my fall, Charlie added and looked at him. But, did you want to see me? No, Seung-ho finally replied stiffly and turned around before he said anything else. His jaw clenched as he walked away. His body still felt hot even as confusion and annoyance settled with him. Later that evening, Stephanie Liu, his friend, sat across from him in the living room, scrolling through her tablet. She wore her usual skimpy and comfy homewear, something he never paid attention to before. You seem distracted, she said casually. Rough day?
No.
It was uneventful, he replied stiffly. His eyes looked over Stephanie's legs and face. She was pretty and sexy. Someone almost every man would want. But not him. Instead, he felt nothing. No tension, no reaction, nothing. His body was as calm and unresponsive as ever. He let out a deep sigh and stood to his feet. Stephanie was not a good meter to gauge his emotions by. After all, she wasn't his type of woman, not now, not ever. Hey, Seung-ho, are you good? She asked from behind. Yeah, he nodded and stepped away. Later, in the corridor, Dae-hyun, his bodyguard, approached. Sir. Seung-ho stopped walking, his brows furrowing as a thought occurred to him. Maybe a test would clear this confusion in his mind. Without warning, Seung-ho reached out, grabbed Dae-hyun by the shoulders, and pulled him into a brief, firm embrace. Dae-hyun stiffened in pure shock. Sir? Seung-ho released him immediately. No heat, no bodily reaction. The only thing he felt was discomfort and familiarity. Dae-hyun stared at him. Is everything all right? Yes, Seung-ho said slowly. He wasn't looking at the bodyguard anymore. He was remembering the weight of a particular repairman colliding with him in a service hallway. The way his body had betrayed him. That sequence disturbed him far more than he could admit. Return to your duties, he said. Dae-hyun hesitated, then nodded and walked away. Seung-ho remained still, his thoughts going haywire. Why had he reacted to that repairman that weighed nothing? 2 days later, Lee Jun-suk arrived at Seung-ho's home. Calling Lee Jun-suk a business partner was a stretch. They had business interests that were aligned at the time. They were what you called frenemy. Not really friends, and not really enemies either. Jun-suk was in a perfect suit, seated with a relaxed posture. He had the faint confidence of a man accustomed to being received warmly. Seung-ho, he greeted smoothly. You finally fixed your terrible connection. I have messages flying in at an alarming rate. It functions, Seung-ho answered dryly, already fed up with the meeting. Jun-suk's eyes drifted casually across the room, and his gaze landed on the window. Outside, Charlie was kneeling near a console, securing a cable. Well, he murmured. Didn't know you hired pretty repairmen now. Seung-ho set his glass down with a quiet, controlled movement and no visible irritation on his expression. His jaw clenched slowly as he met Jun-suk's gaze. Finish your drink, Seung-ho said evenly, and leave. The air tightened. Jun-suk blinked once, surprised, then gave a soft chuckle. Are you being territorial about a repairman? He set the untouched glass aside, a dangerous smirk on his lips another time then. On his way out, Jun-suk's gaze brushed Charlie again, thoughtful this time, assessing. Seung-ho watched as his frenemy left his home. Only one question dwelled on his mind. Why did he react like that? Evening settled quietly over the estate. Seung-ho stood near the window, reviewing a document he hadn't turned a page on in several minutes. He had gotten a request from his frenemy, Lee Jun-suk. He too had a malfunctioning electrical problem in his home and was in need of a repairman. Nam Seung-ho was tempted to refer a company to him, but he remembered a conversation he had with Charlie, who said that all work is welcome. The more work he had, the merrier it was, were his exact words. So, maybe referring Charlie to Lee Jun-suk would not be a bad idea, he thought. I think I'm going to refer Charlie to Jun-suk's home for some work, Nam Seung-ho said to his bodyguard, calling Dae-hyun the next morning at his home. Dae-hyun arched a brow. Mr. Jun-suk? But he's weird. Nam Seung-ho chuckled. You're right. He has his quirks. But I'm just trying to help Charlie. He said he needed more work. Dae-hyun nodded. The repairman is growing on you, he commented. Nam Seung-ho's mind flashed back to the fierceness of the repairman, Charlie. I have a meeting in 5 minutes, so I want you to inform Charlie about the new gig, Seung-ho said, and tell him to put his head down when he's working in Jun-suk's home. None of the back talk he usually does. Getting on Jun-suk nerves isn't worth it. There's every possibility Jun-suk won't let it slide. Yes, sir. Dae-hyun nodded and left. But then, even as Seung-ho watched him go, something uneasy crept into his chest. Dae-hyun found Charlie washing up at the back of the house. His boots off, his jumpsuit down, sleeves rolled up and face cap gone. Dae-hyun slowed as he approached, his brows furrowing and his eyes narrowing as he noted some things. Slender feet, slender hands, longer hair. What's up? Charlie called. Even his voice seemed lighter, Dae-hyun thought. The boss referred you to another job. He said slowly, trying to come to terms with what he was seeing. The information is in the paper. Charlie dried her hands and grabbed the paper. She read through quickly, noting the required details. Wow, that's a nice pay, she commented as she eyed the rate. I guess it's nice to have a rich boss who has rich friends, huh? Charlie looked up when there was no response from the guard and noticed his eyes were wide with shock. What is it? She glanced back, checking to see if there was an alien behind her. Dae-hyun looked at her. You're a woman, he stated, his voice filled with shock. There was a brief pause, then, yes, Charlie said simply, returning her gaze to the paper. Last I checked. You let everyone assume otherwise. Charlie folded the paper and slid it into her pocket. No, I didn't. Wait a minute. Are you questioning my appearance? Charlie crossed her arms. Are you saying I don't look like a woman? No, you don't. Dae-hyun rushed out. I didn't mean it like that. I meant you. Charlie waited for him to complete his sentence, but nothing came out. Do you have a problem with a woman working as a handyman? No, it's not that. Dae-hyun sighed. His hands went to his face in exasperation. Then what is it? Charlie asked. It's this job. If the boss knew you were a woman, he wouldn't refer to that guy. What's wrong with the guy? He's a creep. He's bad news. Dae-hyun said. Charlie chuckled. Well, in my line of work, I've dealt with lots of creeps. I can handle him. Charlie. Dae-hyun shook his head. I have to tell my boss that you're… Okay, hold on for a minute, Charlie cut in. You're saying if Bossman knew I was a woman, he'll try and revoke his referral, right? Just let this one slide, okay? Charlie interrupted. Besides, it's just one job and I need the extra money, okay? Charlie watched the look of doubt and concern flash through the bodyguard's face. Look, after this, I'll inform the boss that he's mistaken about my gender. But… Here, Charlie pulled out her phone. Give me your number. If anything weird happens, I'll call you immediately. I don't like this, Dae-hyun muttered as he put in his number. Relax and trust me. I can handle myself. Still, you gotta be careful. The guy isn't good news. Sure thing. Charlie nodded as she wore her boots, repacked her hair, and walked towards the gate. There were many types of creeps, and also many different ways to handle them. Especially if they were drunk on power or money. Either agree with everything they said, massage their ego, or simply hurt them and run away. The only problem was that Charlie didn't the type she was going to face, but one thing was sure for Charlie. Nothing was going to stand between her and getting her money. Quick break. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We love seeing our Lifetale family from around the world. As the taxi pulled away from the wrought iron gates of Lee Jun-suk's estate, Charlie found herself studying the property longer than necessary. Somehow, the house was too quiet. Large homes usually carried a rhythm, staff movement, distant machinery, something alive beneath the architecture. This one felt off. Charlie took a deep breath and shook herself. It was probably jitters from Dae-hyun's warnings that had her like this. She adjusted her grip on the toolbox and pressed the bell. The gate opened immediately. No voice.
No confirmation.
Just a soft mechanical release. Not unsettling at all, she muttered, stepping inside. The front door opened before she could knock, and a huge man in a black suit stepped forward and met her in the front yard. Identification, his deep voice called out. Here. Charlie pulled out her business card. The man arched an eyebrow at it, but said nothing. Follow me, he ordered and turned around. Inside, the house was immaculate, spoke of money and wealth. Her boots sounded louder than they should against the polished floor. A man in a white dress shirt approached them leisurely. The main boss, Charlie thought as soon as she saw him. The huge man handed her business card to him. He barely glanced at it before stepping towards her. Charlie Reynolds. So, Seung-ho actually sent you, he said with a smile. You must be pretty efficient, huh? Charlie narrowed her eyes at the man. She had seen the man around in Seung-ho's home. I'm good at my job, she said plainly. Is that so? He asked as his gaze ran over her, assessing and reading her. Her grip tightened on the toolbox as she shifted on her feet uncomfortably. Where's the fault? She asked, glancing around. Straight to business, he said lightly. I like that. Over here, he moved inside. The huge guard didn't follow them inside. Charlie released a breath. Connection drops every few minutes. Jun-suk continued. The main hub is inside my office. Charlie followed, counting doorways out of habit. 1 corridor. 2 exits. Staircase to the left. Good. Always know your exits. The office equipment was spacious and expensive. Charlie crouched beside the panel and opened it. Who installed this? She asked. I don't know. One of those tech companies. Well, they need to work on their installation skill, she said dryly under her breath. Jun-suk chuckled softly behind her. You're very direct. Yeah, she drawled and focused on her work. She felt his gaze linger, but ignored it. Signal interference, she said after a moment. These lines are competing. Can you fix it? He asked, taking a step closer. Yes. A few adjustments. A cable rerouted. System reset, and then stabilization achieved.
Test it, she said.
Jun-suk checked his phone screen, then grabbed a remote and checked the connection of his household appliances. Impressive, he said. Charlie nodded and closed the panel. I'll send an invoice. Light footsteps echoed in her ears, and Charlie looked back. Lee Jun-suk leaned against the only exit door of the room, his arms crossed against his chest, and a smirk on his lips. Charlie stood slowly, her eyes drifting to the door handle then back at him. Is there a problem? Not at all. Jun-suk answered. I simply want to hire you permanently. You clearly have skills, and I'm curious to know all about them. Charlie grabbed her toolbox. I work and get paid per job. No long-term contracts. Isn't that different from what you do for Seung-ho? Charlie pressed her lips, maintaining silence. About that invoice, she started as she pulled out her phone. No need for that. Jun-suk cut in then walked towards the desk. Charlie used that opportunity to go closer to the exit door and made sure it was unlocked. Here you go. Jun-suk handed her an envelope filled with cash. This is beyond what was written up, she commented. I like to tip my workers. Jun-suk said and stretched out his hand. It was nice working with you. Charlie glanced at his hand, then back at him. Yeah, she answered stiffly as she shook it. You have soft hands for a technician, Jun-suk said as his grip tightened a bit, his eyes assessing her face. Charlie pulled out her hand from his. Yeah, she said, then left the room swiftly. See you later, Charlie. Jun-suk called from behind. I might need your services later. Charlie didn't look back, Instead, she quickened her steps. Only when the gates closed behind her did Charlie release the breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "I'm never coming back here," she murmured as she made her way home. But even as she said that, Jun-suk was planning something else. 2 days later, an unknown number rang her business line, and she picked up. Charlie's repairs and maintenance. "Hello," an eerie voice came through. Immediately, she knew who it belonged to. "It's Lee Jun-suk. You worked at my house." "I remember," she cut in. "Oh, great. You see, something else requires your attention." Charlie's brows furrowed. "What else?" "Half my home has electrical supply, while the other part doesn't. And I think something blew up in the panel you opened last time." Her eyes widened. "How did that happen?" "Not sure," Jun-suk answered smoothly. "But I do need your help." "Don't worry. I'll pay triple this time." Charlie almost choked at that. Triple of what he had given her last time? That was a whole lot of cash she would need to reduce her debts, but it made her uncomfortable. "I'm okay with the normal pay rate. It's for the trouble. See you soon." Then he ended the call. Charlie stared at the phone a moment longer than necessary. Something felt off. She wasn't sure if it was the money or the fact she had to go back to that house. Swallowing her nerves, she dialed another number. Dae-hyun answered immediately. "Hello." "You shouldn't go back," he said after she explained everything. "It was a one-time job for you. The less he knows you, the better." "I'm not looking for one-time jobs. I'm looking for clients that pay well." Charlie leaned against the wall of her home as she'd out of breath. "I don't even know why I called you." "It's your instinct," he replied. "Do not go," he ordered. "I'll leave this morning. I'll tell you when I get there." "That's a wrong move." Before she could respond, another voice carried faintly through his end of the line. "Who is that?" It was Seung-ho. Even filtered through distance, she could tell it was him. Immediately, Charlie ended the call, her heart pounding. She hadn't even kept her promise to Dae-hyun about telling the boss man that she was a woman. Not that it mattered. "After this," she murmured, "I'll tell him later today." Seung-ho rarely lost focus in meetings. It was one of the reasons men twice his age still chose their words carefully around him. But today was different. "And if we shift the acquisition to fourth quarter," someone in the meeting drifted on. Seung-ho's gaze shifted to his bodyguard, who stood 3 steps beside him in the conference room. Canned Dae-hyun shifted on his feet, as though he had somewhere else to be. And to top it all, the man kept checking his phone every 3 seconds. "Everyone out," Seung-ho ordered, his tone sharp. "You." Seung-ho started as he looked at Dae-hyun after the room was cleared. "What is it?" "It's nothing, sir." "It's not nothing. You've been fidgeting even before we left the house." Seung-ho's eyes narrowed. "It was that phone call earlier, wasn't it?" Canned Dae-hyun released a sigh. He was worried about Charlie. She had sent a message that she was close to Lee Jun-suk's house, but after that, he hadn't heard from her. "If it's something that affects my bodyguard, it's probably something that affects me too," Seung-ho continued. "Well, it's about Charlie, sir." Seung-ho blinked once. He wasn't expecting that at all. Lee Jun-suk called for another electrical maintenance work, and Charlie is going. Seung-ho jaw tightened. "Didn't you tell him it was a one-time job?" Shaking his head, Seung-ho sighed. "Well, he's working for his money. That shouldn't make you behave this way." "So, what is the problem?" "The thing is," Dae-hyun swallowed, "Charlie is actually a woman." A ringing sound echoed in Seung-ho ears at his words. "A what?" Kang Dae-hyun took a deep breath and quickly explained everything that had happened to his boss. "So, you're telling me that she hasn't texted back after reaching her destination?" "No, sir, but I can try calling her now." "No," Seung-ho stood up. "We'll go there immediately. Get the car." "Sir, we can't leave off the probability that Lee Jun-suk suspects she's a woman. I don't know if he'll try anything, but the man is unpredictable," Seung-ho explained as he made his way down the hallway. His hands clenched at his side at the shocking revelation. Charlie was a woman? Why in the world hadn't he noticed it? What was he even thinking? All this while, his body had known, but his eyes refused to see it. Minutes later, the car cut through traffic with quiet aggression. Seung-ho stared ahead, jaw set just enough to signal something had shifted beneath his composure. There was still no answer from Charlie. Honestly, he wasn't sure how he would react if Lee Jun-suk harmed her. Faster, he ordered the driver, unease settling in his chest. Jun-suk's estate stood unnaturally quiet when they arrived. Seung-ho stepped out before the car fully stopped. The front door was locked, but the guards with him pushed it open. At that point, some security started trickling in. Seung-ho left them for his guards to handle. Rushing into the house with Dae-hyun on his tail, Seung-ho looked around. "Check the left side. Stay back." A sharp voice came down from the corridor. It was Charlie's, and she sounded furious. He followed the sound. The office door was slightly opened. Inside, Charlie stood with a broken bottle angled forward, shoulders tight, eyes blazing with warning. Her uniform was stained. Opposite her, Lee Jun-suk remained very still. His shirt had a red stain all over it. He looked disheveled. A chair lay overturned nearby.
No chaos.
Just tension stretched to a breaking point. Jun-suk looked at him, his eyes widening. "Did she call you?" "Look, I was only—" The sentence never finished. Seung-ho crossed the room in 2 strides and drove his fist cleanly into Jun-suk's jaw. The impact snapped his head sideways. "I've had enough of your games," Seung-ho said, voice low and lethal. Jun-suk steadied himself against the desk, tasting blood. "You broke into my house." Seung-ho didn't blink. "You tried to mess with someone that works for me." Charlie's eyes flicked toward him. She swallowed as their gazes met. Seung-ho reached for her wrist. Firm, not rough, lowering the jagged glass from her grip. "Let's go." Jun-suk gave a short laugh despite the swelling bruise forming along his cheek. "You're reacting emotionally, Seung-ho. You just made a mistake." Seung-ho's jaw clenched as he marched forward without turning back. He guided Charlie toward the exit and into the car. The car ride was silent. Charlie stared out the window, adrenaline slowly draining from her system. After several blocks, she spoke. "I had it handled." "Really?"
It didn't seem that way to me, Seung-ho said dryly.
"I was just calculating," Charlie said, her voice low as she glanced down at her hands and flexed her hands. Seung-ho looked at her, then at the hands that held the broken bottle. "Were you hurt?" he asked.
"No," she answered.
"Did he touch you?"
"No."
The word came sharp.
"Certain."
Something inside Seung-ho settled, and he released a small breath. He glanced at her uniform and the stain on it. "It's some expensive wine. I didn't drink it," she explained, then looked out the window. They drove the rest of the way, without speaking. Back at the estate, he stopped her near the entrance. "A spare room is down the hall. Clean up." Charlie looked up at him. "That's not needed." The words died in her throat as she saw the look in his eyes. She held his gaze another second, then nodded once. Truthfully, she wanted to wash the grime and even the memory of the day off her skin. When she emerged from the room later, the difference was undeniable. Hair down, face scrubbed clean, fresh clothes borrowed from staff. Seung-ho looked up from where he stood near the window and kept looking a fraction longer than intended. "You didn't tell me you were a woman," he said. Charlie crossed her arms lightly. "I didn't realize my gender was misunderstood. I like to think it was pretty obvious." "Obvious, my foot," he muttered. Seung-ho's eyes narrowed. "But your name is Charlie." Charlie shrugged. "It's short for Charlotte." "I prefer Charlie." Seung-ho nodded once. "What you did today was risky. I've worked for him before." "You referred me." "Once." Seung-ho cut in, for a one-time job. Jun-suk doesn't even remember the name of his driver. "If he called you back, it was for something else." "I thought I could handle him," Charlie muttered. "Trust me, you can't handle a man like Lee Jun-suk, especially if you've piqued his interest." Seung-ho watched as Charlie rubbed her hands together, her shoulders hunched. He let out a sigh and shook his head. "Dae-hyun," he called. His bodyguard stepped inside. "See her home," he ordered. Dae-hyun nodded and guided her out, her uniform and toolbox in hand. Nam Seung-ho stood by the window as he watched the car depart. The way he had reacted when he thought of Charlie being in danger, and the way he reacted when he saw her with her hair down. Those emotions were new to him. For now, they were unimportant because something else lay waiting in the horizon. A threat in the form of Lee Jun-suk. 1 week passed, and there was no sign of any retaliation from Lee Jun-suk. It felt fishy, but maybe he had finally gotten a working brain, Seung-ho thought. Ever since the day of the revelation, it had been difficult for Nam Seung-ho to see Charlie as just Charlie. Something had shifted, and he didn't know what. As he made his way down the stairs, laughter echoed through the large house. Nam Seung-ho stopped his descent as an unpleasant sight greeted him. Charlie was in her uniform, this time with her hair loose. She was seated at his table, her lips wide with laughter. Kang Dae-hyun stood beside her, talking and smiling with her. Seung-ho watched for a moment too long. Something unfamiliar pressed sharply beneath his ribs. Tight and unwelcome. Charlie laughed again at something Dae-hyun muttered. As Seung-ho took a step forward, a ping sounded from his phone. Without shifting his gaze, he pulled it out from the side pocket, then finally looked at it. A message from an unknown number.
He tapped on it.
His eyes widened as he looked at it. It was a picture of Charlie in casual clothes. It seemed like she was in a local cafe. Her expression was light and free, her smile radiant. Nam Seung-ho looked at the text underneath the picture. It read, "How far will you go to protect her? Because mistakes must be rectified."
Seung-ho frowned.
The threat he had been expecting had finally arrived. But he wasn't expecting someone else to at the center of it. He looked up, his eyes on Charlie as she continued to converse freely, unaware of the looming threat around her. Unintentionally, he had dragged her into his silent war with Lee Jun-suk. Now, protecting her just became his #1 priority. And Lee Jun-suk would learn the hard way, just how far Seung-ho was willing to go. The end. If you enjoyed this story, leave a heart in the comments so we know you stayed with us to the end. Like and subscribe for more Life Tale moments. Your support and presence means much more to us than you think. We're glad to have you here. Are you curious to see how far Nam Seung-ho would protect Charlie from this threat? Tell us in the comment, and see you in the next story.